In this video, I'm going to talk to you a bit about how being more compassionate with yourself is going to help you become more consistent in your fitness journey. Hi, my name is Clara. I'm the ExerPsych, a sport and exercise psychologist and a fitness professional who specializes in helping people exactly like you break out of their all or nothing mindsets to make sure that they can stay consistent on their fitness journey for the rest of their lives. In this video, I'm going to talk to you a bit about how being more compassionate with yourself is going to help you become more consistent in your fitness journey. And I'm going to start this video with a caveat because every single client that I help tends to tell me, well, Clara, what if being compassionate makes me more lazy? There's always this very understandable apprehension around being compassionate. I think because compassion is incredibly misunderstood. More often than not, we assume that compassion is just simply being quite passive, letting ourselves off the hook with any kind of challenges that we're experiencing. And particularly if somebody is very harsh on themselves, if someone is very perfectionistic in their tendencies and in their expectations of how they want to approach their health, their fitness, their goals, no matter what, then the thought of even just like contending with being compassionate can feel quite jarring and quite aggravating, can bring up this very real fear of what if it makes it lazy. And I always counter with saying that, well, if you're scared of compassion because you think it's going to make you lazy, then I think that you've simply misunderstood compassion, because compassion, we can split it into two parts. In the first instance, compassion is about engaging with and acknowledging the thing that we're finding difficult. Let's just say in this case, the consistency of, losing weight or staying consistent with the behaviors that are going to support long-term weight loss and that weight loss maintenance. Now, in acknowledging that that is difficult, it essentially requires this sort of process of de-shaming, because socially we're essentially conditioned into thinking that weight loss should come easily, that this should be something that we just like default to, that it should be something that comes automatically, and that if we struggle with it, that we are bad. But in acknowledging that that is something difficult, if we don't do anything about it, then that is no longer compassionate, right? So it's all fine and well in acknowledging that you are finding it difficult to be in your body right now. It's all fine and well in acknowledging that you're finding it difficult to be consistent with your health behaviors. It's all fine and well in acknowledging that there are real social pressures that impose these ideals on us that are maybe not quite tangible for us to achieve. But if you then don't do anything in response to that, to change that difficult experience, then I would always argue that that is not compassionate, because we need both the component or the element of acknowledging the thing that we're finding difficult, but also we need to be able to do something in response. And what we do in response can look like a million different things. It could be working with a psychologist to be able to unpack what those difficulties are and learning to feel less ashamed of yourself for those challenges. But it could also be learning how to bridge the gap between feeling stuck and actually being able to take action. In this case, I'm thinking specifically of if you're feeling really anxious about going to the gym. You can acknowledge that that's difficult, but if you don't do anything to tangibly overcome that, or at least make space for de-shaming the fact that you're finding that difficult, then you're going to stay stuck in this sort of perpetual cycle of self-criticism, which inevitably is not compassionate, because you're perpetuating your difficulties, right? Now, there's still a lot of resistance around that, and I do experience often in applied practice and one-to-one conversations with clients this pushback against compassion. There's still this like icky kind of apprehension towards it, and I get it, because I've been there, done that. The first time I thought about self-compassion, the first time I started really learning about this concept and applying it to my own life in the context of health and fitness, but also more broadly, it also kind of gave me the ick. But this is an explanation that I think really helps us understand that key distinction between the fact that compassion isn't something that will make us lazy, and in fact it's impossible. If we approach goals that are important to us with compassion, I would argue that it's actually impossible to become lazy and to become disengaged with the goals in and of themselves. So this is the example. I want you to imagine that you're walking down the street with a friend of yours, right? And you realize that your friend's got an untied shoelace, and you point that out to them and you say, hey, your shoelace is undone, you should probably do it, tie it up because you're gonna fall. And they decide to ignore you. That's all fine and well, you decide not to push it. But the next thing you know, they fall on the ground. If you simply help your friend up and don't mention the fact that their shoelace is still undone, they're gonna risk falling again. And I would say that is not compassionate. That is not the compassionate thing to do. Equally, of course, it wouldn't be compassionate to see that your friend's fallen over and basically like kick them on the ground and insult them for being so stupid and for not listening to you and, oh my God, I can't believe you did that, right? That's not compassionate either. The compassionate thing to do would be, yes, of course, to help your friend up from the ground, but also to point out and say, hey, look, I told you that shoelace was undone. You didn't listen, and then you fell, and I really don't want you to fall, right? Like, the reason you are telling them to do their shoelace up is because you don't want them to fall. You don't want them to hurt themselves. It's a very, very, very different experience. And so when we apply that sort of thinking to the gym context, to weight loss, to exercising, to consistency, no matter what, compassion becomes a lot more understandable, in the sense that it's not about obviously it's not about being critical of yourself and berating yourself for finding it difficult to stay consistent, of course not, or for, insulting yourself when you come into contact with your own shortcomings. It's also not about dismissing every single time that you do not show up in line with the goals that you'd set for yourself. It's not about going, it's fine, because it's not fine. It's not fine. You set those goals for a reason. If you care about these things, if health and fitness is an important value of yours, or if engaging consistently in health and fitness practices is something that is then going to facilitate you or help you in doing all the other things that you care about more or better, or with more joy, with more fulfillment, with better engagement, then it's not compassionate to pretend that you don't give a shit about the fact that you have been really inconsistent in doing the things that were important to you. That's not compassionate. The compassionate thing to do is to acknowledge that was hard, not shame yourself for it, but to learn to work and do something in response. And more often than not, that is learning to tone down the inner critic, the critic that often gets in the way, that makes you feel really shit, that makes you feel really ashamed for the things that you've been finding difficult, and learning to develop the mindset skills that are going to help you overcome that, which inevitably comes with a lot of introspection, a lot of becoming aware of difficult thoughts, feelings, and emotions that appear from within, learning to tolerate the distress that shows up in relation to that, and from there building up the practice to be able to do the thing that you find difficult, even when it is difficult, not by removing that experience. So that is how I always help my clients build consistency through self-compassion. And I hope that you found that video useful. If you did, make sure that you give the video a like, and if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to my channel for more similar content to this.